Let me begin by sharing with you the knowledge of something most people chase but few truly understand. Confidence. Not the kind that shouts, performs, or seeks approval like a spotlight addict on a stage. I'm talking about the kind of confidence that is quiet, still, certain. The kind that doesn't need to be loud because it already knows its place in the world. There's a moment, quiet, small, when a person realizes they no longer need to prove who they are. It doesn't happen with applause. It doesn't arrive with titles, achievements, or loud declarations. It comes silently, like sunrise on a still morning, washing over everything in golden certainty. This is the moment confidence begins. Not the kind draped in arrogance or inflated with ego. Not the version shaped by likes, promotions, or praise. I'm speaking about the kind of confidence that breathes deeply. The kind that doesn't walk into a room to be seen, but walks in knowing it belongs. True confidence doesn't demand attention. It commands respect, by never needing it, and yet we live in a world obsessed with noise. Loud wins, bold shouts, opinions clash like cymbals in a marching band. People shout to be right, perform to be liked, sell to be admired. In the chaos, the truly powerful are often overlooked because they do not beg to be seen. They choose to see others first. There's a quiet authority in those who don't compete for the spotlight, a steadiness in the ones who listen longer than they speak. They don't have to say much. Their presence does the talking. Their posture, their patience, the way they make others feel heard, that is their resume. It's not that they lack opinions or strength, quite the opposite. Their restraint is the mark of discipline. Their silence is filled with thought, not absence. Their confidence doesn't show off, it shows up. Think of Abraham Lincoln, soft-spoken, deliberate, never one for empty rhetoric. Yet when he did speak, the world listened. Why? Because people knew his words were not wasted. He had wrestled with them, owned them, delivered them with the weight of someone who had lived their truth. Real influence doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from mastering yourself. You see, most people confuse visibility with value. They think the louder they are, the more they'll matter. But visibility is temporary. It flickers with trends, fades with time. Value, true human value, only grows when you shift your focus from being impressive to being impactful. And here's the quiet truth. You don't become confident by being told you are. You become confident when you stop needing to be told. There's something powerful about a person who asks, "How are you?" and truly listens to the answer. Not waiting for their turn to speak. Not calculating a response to look smart or kind, but actually being interested. Dale Carnegie once said, "You can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get people interested in you." That's not just a social tip. That's a leadership principle. That's a quiet revolution in a world screaming for validation. When you stop trying to impress and start trying to understand, everything changes. Relationships deepen, walls fall, influence grows, not because you pushed for it, but because you earned it. Let me tell you something that might change your life. People don't remember what you say. They remember how you make them feel. And the way you make people feel, seen, safe, understood, begins with confidence that isn't fragile, that doesn't need constant applause, that doesn't feel threatened by another person's strength. That kind of confidence is built on humility, not the false humility that shrinks or apologizes for your existence, but the kind that knows its worth and doesn't have to scream it. Think of Nelson Mandela, 27 years in prison, humiliated, forgotten by the world. And yet when he emerged, he led not with vengeance, but with vision. Not with noise, but with calm. He united, he forgave, and he listened. That's not weakness. That's steel wrapped in grace. Because the strongest people are not those who dominate. They're the ones who elevate. Confidence means you don't need to win every argument. You don't need to post every opinion. You don't need to prove anything to people who already made up their minds. You just keep showing up, aligned, anchored, and available for what matters. I know what you're thinking, but what if people think I'm weak for staying quiet? What if I'm overlooked? What if I never get the recognition I deserve? That's the voice of fear, not truth. You see, fear is loud. It panics, it postures, it tells you to speak first, to dominate the room, to make your mark at any cost. But the quiet voice, the one that says, wait, breathe, listen, that's the voice you can trust. That's the voice of wisdom. You don't need to be the loudest in the room. You need to be the most grounded. There's a reason silence unnerves insecure people, because they can't control it. But for those who know themselves, silence is a friend, a canvas, a sanctuary. Learn to sit in it. Learn to speak from it. Because when you do, your words will carry the weight of 1,000 hollow speeches. When Eleanor Roosevelt was asked how she withstood the critics, the haters, the doubters, she answered simply, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." Confidence is not about them. It's about your choice to not hand over your power. It's the discipline to respond instead of react. The awareness to see people, not as threats, but as humans with their own battles. This is what quiet confidence gives you. The ability to see clearly, and still choose kindly. And in that space, you begin to lead. Let me now guide you into the hidden room behind every great connection, every lasting influence, the quiet superpower of empathy. It's not flashy, it doesn't scream for attention, but it opens hearts faster than logic ever could. We live in an age where people are more connected than ever, yet they feel more alone. We scroll past faces, comment on lives, tap hearts, but so few take the time to truly feel what someone else is feeling. That's where empathy begins. Not as a tactic, but as a decision to see beyond the surface, to trade judgment for curiosity, to listen, not to fix or defend, but to understand, because when someone feels understood, they stop needing to defend themselves. And when they stop defending, something beautiful happens. They open up. Most people walk around carrying invisible burdens. You can't see the anxiety behind their smile, the heartbreak behind their strength, the fear behind their confidence. And yet you, just by choosing to be present, to see them, can be the only safe place they've known all week. Don't underestimate that power. Dale Carnegie taught that the deepest principle in human nature is the craving to be appreciated. Not flattered, not managed, appreciated. And appreciation starts with empathy. Empathy is not saying, I know how you feel. It's saying, even if I don't understand fully, I'm here. I'm with you. I want to understand. That presence alone can change someone's entire day, sometimes their entire life. So it made people like Fred Rogers, yes, Mr. Rogers, unforgettable. He didn't speak with volume, but with value. Every word he said was soaked in gentleness. And when he looked into the camera, children felt seen. Adults did too. Because empathy isn't a soft skill, it's a soul skill. And it takes quiet confidence to exercise it. Because insecure people listen to reply, but the confident, they listen to connect. They ask questions without angles. They hold space without rushing to fill it. They care without needing credit. And the irony, that makes them magnetic. You don't need charisma to be influential. You need care. Empathy is the beginning of influence. Because the moment someone feels heard, they lean in. They trust. And when trust is present, transformation is possible. Think about the last time someone truly listened to you. Not with their phone in their hand. Not with their eyes drifting to the clock. But really listened, like what you were saying mattered more than anything else in the world. How did that make you feel? Seen? Safe? Respected? That's the seed of trust. That's the ground where leadership is built. Carnegie didn't win people with manipulation. He didn't teach clever tricks to get people to say yes. He reminded us that every person we meet, regardless of background, belief, or behavior, wants to feel important. And the most authentic way to make someone feel important, genuinely care about what matters to them, that doesn't require a speech. It requires attention. Not perfection, but presence. Not all the right answers, but the willingness to ask better questions. Empathy says, I see you, I hear you. You matter, not because of what you can do for me, but because you are human. This isn't weakness. This is rare strength. The kind of strength that doesn't flinch when others hurt. The kind that leans in instead of shutting down. The kind of strength that doesn't just lead people. It walks beside them. Empathy transforms conflict into conversation. It turns criticism into connection. It rewrites narratives before they become regrets. It's the difference between reacting and responding, between pushing and inviting, between being a boss and becoming a leader. And don't get me wrong, this isn't always easy. It's much simpler to dismiss people than to understand them. It's quicker to judge than to inquire. But simple doesn't mean right, and quick doesn't mean meaningful. It takes emotional strength to stay open when someone is being difficult. It takes maturity to ask, what pain is this person projecting? It takes confidence, quiet, grounded confidence, to say even if I disagree, I can still care. You see, empathy doesn't weaken your boundaries. It clarifies them, because when you see others clearly, you also begin to see yourself clearly. You realize you're not responsible for fixing everyone, but you are responsible for how you show up. And sometimes, showing up, with patience, with kindness, with attention, is the influence. Even if you never see the result, even if you're never thanked, even if no one knows but you. Because confidence is not about being noticed, it's about knowing your impact, even when no one is watching. Empathy isn't about being soft, it's about being solid in your humanity. It means you have nothing to prove, so you can give everything that matters. That's where connection begins. That's where influence grows. That's where quiet confidence speaks the loudest. Let me now walk you deeper into a truth few will tell you. Confidence is not built by performing better than others, but by becoming more honest with yourself. True confidence doesn't grow from applause. It grows in quiet, uncelebrated moments of self-awareness. It blooms not when you're on stage, but when you're alone with your doubts and choose not to run from them. You see, the world trains us to believe we are only as good as what we can prove. So we polish our resumes, sharpen our arguments, chase likes, curate lives. But when the noise fades, when the stage lights dim, who are you then? The ones who truly rise in leadership, in relationships, in legacy, are not the ones who need to shine the brightest. They are the ones who are willing to look within and say, I still have much to learn, and I'm not afraid to say so. Because humility is not the opposite of confidence. It is the foundation of it. Confidence that must be performed is fragile. It depends on perception, but confidence built on humility is unshakable because it's honest. It says, I know what I bring to the table, and I know I don't need to be the smartest or the strongest to belong here. When you don't need to prove your worth, you free yourself to improve your worth. Quietly, steadily, powerfully, and that's when people begin to trust you. They don't trust perfect people. They trust real people. The kind of person who says, I don't know yet, but I'll learn. I was wrong, and I take responsibility. I failed, but I'm not finished. That kind of self-assurance doesn't come from ego. It comes from integrity, and it's rare, because the world rewards performance, but relationships reward authenticity. You may impress others with your strengths, but you connect with them through your vulnerability. Abraham Lincoln, during his presidency, surrounded himself with people who often disagreed with him. He didn't silence opposition. He welcomed it. He believed that leadership was not about surrounding yourself with yes men, but with truth tellers. That's not weakness. That's humility wrapped in self-confidence. It's saying, I don't need to be right to be respected. I don't fear disagreement because I value growth more than comfort. And here's the secret. When you lead with humility, people don't see you as lesser. They see you as stronger because you aren't ruled by your ego. Let's be honest. It's easy to hide behind polished words and curated images, but real strength shows up when the mask drops. When you can say, I'm not perfect, but I'm learning. I don't have all the answers, but I care deeply. I'm not trying to impress you. I'm trying to be real with you. That's the kind of person others want to follow. Not because they fear you, but because they trust you. And here's the magic. When you live that way, you give others permission to do the same. Humility is not about thinking less of yourself. It's about thinking of yourself less often. And in that space where ego takes a back seat, influence finally gets to breathe. Think of the most grounded person you've ever met. Someone who never needed to dominate a room, yet owned every space they walked into. They weren't boastful. They didn't interrupt. But when they spoke, you listened. Not because of how loud they were, but because of how clear they were. That clarity came from humility, not performance. They had nothing to prove, and that made everything they did more powerful. You can feel it in their presence, the absence of pretense, the calm that says, I'm okay with who I am, and I'm still growing. I don't need to know everything to be valuable. I don't need to pretend to matter. I matter because I show up consistently, with heart. And yes, you can live this way too. It begins the moment you stop trying to be impressive and start trying to be impactful. It begins when you stop hiding your flaws and start honoring your growth. It begins when you stop chasing validation and start cultivating character. They are the ones people turn to in storms, the ones others confide in, the ones remembered, not because they dazzled, but because they stood firm in who they were and gave others space to do the same. So ask yourself, are you performing for approval, or are you living from alignment? You don't need to be flawless. You need to be faithful to your values, to your integrity, to your growth. And when you are, confidence won't have to shout. It will simply exist, like a lighthouse on a quiet shore, unmoved by the crashing waves, unwavering in its glow. Let me now bring you to the place where quiet confidence transforms into quiet influence, where leadership no longer looks like command, but connection. It begins the moment you stop trying to control others and start choosing to understand them. Real influence doesn't come from dominance. It doesn't come from forcing agreement, shouting opinions, or winning arguments. It comes from the quiet art of understanding, not just minds but hearts. Because when someone feels understood, their resistance softens, their defenses lower, and what was once a wall becomes a window. Dale Carnegie knew this better than anyone. He didn't teach people how to manipulate others. He taught them how to see people clearly, how to meet them where they are, and how to lead them gently to where they could be. He understood this truth. You cannot change someone by criticizing them into submission. You can only invite them with empathy, with patience, with sincere interest, into a better version of themselves. And that requires understanding. But understanding isn't just intellectual, it's intentional. It means being more curious than critical, more attentive than reactive, more interested than interesting. It's choosing to see the world through their eyes, even if you disagree with what they say. Because the moment you stop trying to convince someone and start trying to understand them is the moment your influence begins. Not because they're impressed by you, but because they feel safe with you. And that's the power few talk about, being someone others feel safe around. Safe to express, safe to question, safe to grow. That safety doesn't come from being the smartest person in the room. It comes from being the most present person in the room, the most attuned, the most aware. You may not realize it, but some of the most influential people in history didn't command rooms with volume. They commanded attention with presence. Think of Nelson Mandela, locked away for 27 years, but emerged not with vengeance, with vision. He didn't try to destroy his enemy. He tried to understand them, and in doing so transformed a nation. That kind of influence doesn't shout. It listens. It learns. It leads from within. Because when you understand someone's fears, you no longer respond with frustration. You respond with compassion. When you understand their needs, you no longer push your own agenda. You look for alignment. When you understand their story, you no longer see an opponent. You see a person. And suddenly, your words carry more weight, not because they are clever, but because they are connected. Let me ask you something. When was the last time someone said, "You really get me"? That's influence. Because long after people forget what you said, they'll remember how you made them feel. And feeling understood, that's unforgettable. The truth is, influence isn't a talent. It's a choice. A choice to value connection over control. A choice to ask more questions than you offer answers. A choice to prioritize being curious over being right. And here's the paradox. The less you try to prove yourself, the more people begin to listen. Because understanding doesn't pressure. It invites. It says, "Tell me more," says, "Help me see it from your side." It says, "Even if we disagree, I respect you." And that respect becomes a bridge, not a barrier, not a battleground. A bridge to trust, a bridge to change. This is not soft. This is not passive. This is strategic kindness. This is emotional wisdom. This is how leaders are made. And yes, it takes strength. Strength to wait when your pride wants to react. Strength to seek understanding when your impulse is to assume. But that strength is exactly what separates noise from voice. A leader from a manipulator, a peacemaker from a performer. So the next time you feel the urge to dominate a conversation, pause. The next time you want to be right, get curious instead. The next time you feel unheard, choose to hear others more deeply. Because when you do, your influence will rise, your relationships will deepen, and your leadership will become something greater than power. It will become partnership. That's how quiet confidence creates lasting impact. It listens to understand. It leads with respect. It influences without ever needing to overpower. And let me now bring you into one of the hardest and most defining moments for any person of influence. The moment you are criticized, misunderstood, maybe even attacked. It's here in this uncomfortable space where your true strength is revealed. Not in how loudly you defend yourself, but in how calmly you choose to respond. Criticism has a strange power. It can either shrink you or shape you depending on who you are when it arrives. Most people fear it. They react. They defend. They lash out. As criticism threatens the illusion of control, the image we so carefully build. But those who walk with quiet confidence, they see criticism not as an attack to fear, but as a mirror to consider. They ask, is there truth in this? Even if it's uncomfortable, is there growth hiding beneath this discomfort? Because here's the truth. You will never lead anything meaningful without facing resistance. And you will never become truly strong if you cannot remain kind in the face of harshness. When someone criticizes you unfairly or not, you're being given a choice. Not a choice about them, but a choice about you. Will you let your emotions take the wheel, or will you anchor yourself in your value? Think of Eleanor Roosevelt, a woman constantly scrutinized, belittled, underestimated. yet never one to return hate with hate. She once said, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." And that wasn't just a clever quote. That was how she lived. She understood this. Criticism only holds the power you give it. You can't control what others say, but you can always control what you absorb. And that is where your power lives. Let me be clear. This doesn't mean you become passive. It doesn't mean you allow disrespect or silence your voice. It means you choose grace, not weakness. You choose clarity, not chaos. You choose self-respect over self-defense. And in doing so, you become immovable, like a tree rooted in purpose. Storms may come, winds may rage, but you bend. You don't break. Because your identity isn't tied to others' opinions. It's anchored in your principles. Here's something few people realize. Sometimes criticism is not about you at all. It's a reflection of them, their wounds, their fears, their unmet needs. But if you're not grounded, you'll take it personally. You'll internalize it. You'll start changing who you are to please people who were never trying to understand you in the first place. And that's how you lose yourself. Quietly, slowly, one reaction at a time. But when you're rooted in truth, you don't need to react. You can respond. And those two things are not the same. Reaction adds noise. Response adds depth. If you've seen this in the greatest leaders, the ones who stay calm under fire. They don't shrink. They don't explode. They hold the space. They allow the moment to pass through them without letting it destroy their peace. Because they've learned this truth. Grace under pressure is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength. So the next time someone criticizes you, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, is there any truth in this that can help me grow? If yes, thank them silently. Let it refine you. If not, let it go. Don't invite poison into your soul just because someone else is bleeding. You don't need to convince everyone. You don't need to correct every false perception. You don't need to fight battles that don't deserve your energy. Sometimes grace is the sharpest edge. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay rooted, while others spiral. And over time, people begin to see, not just who you are, but who you refuse to become in the face of opposition. Not the kind won through arguments, but the kind earned through consistency, character, and calm. Remember, you don't rise by silencing your critics. You rise by outgrowing them. Your energy is too precious to waste on battles that don't build you. So conserve it, channel it, use it to grow taller, not louder. Because quiet confidence doesn't fear criticism. It welcomes clarity. It welcomes refinement. And it walks away from anything that isn't worthy of its peak. Let me now show you the quiet, almost magical force that separates the ordinary from the unforgettable. It's not charisma. It's not intelligence. It's not even success. It's this genuine interest in other people. It sounds simple, too simple. But in a world obsessed with self-promotion, with likes, followers, and personal branding, true interest in others has become rare. And anything rare becomes powerful. Dale Carnegie once said, "You can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get them interested in you." Because when someone truly listens to you, not just with their ears, but with their full presence, it changes you. You remember them. You trust them. You're drawn to them, not because they were impressive, but because they made you feel important. And isn't that what we're all quietly searching for? To feel seen, heard, understood, not evaluated, not compared, not fixed, just seen as we are. Most people listen to reply, but unforgettable people, they listen to understand. They ask thoughtful questions, not to impress you, but to know you. They remember details, not to gain leverage, but because they care. They show up not to be admired, but to make you feel valued. That is unforgettable. It's how Abraham Lincoln, despite being mocked for his looks, his voice, and his background, won the respect of enemies and allies alike. He listened to those who hated him. He studied their concerns. He sought common ground, even as the nation tore itself apart. Because Lincoln didn't seek to be the loudest voice in the room. He sought to be the most human one. They know that the fastest way to build influence is not to dominate others' attention, but to offer them yours. Ask yourself, when was the last time you really listened to someone, without waiting to speak, without formulating your response, without secretly hoping they'd hurry up so you could tell your story? When was the last time you let silence breathe, because you knew the other person just needed space to find their words? When was the last time you made someone feel like the only person in the room? That's not just kindness. That's power. Because people don't follow those who talk the most. They follow those who make them feel most alive, most valued, most understood. You see, most of us are trying so hard to be interesting, when what truly wins hearts is being interested. You don't need to be wealthy, famous, or brilliant to do this. You just need to care. Remember the last time someone followed up on something small you said, something you barely remembered sharing? It moved you, didn't it? Not with louder content, but with quieter presence. Not with more followers, but with deeper connection. So if you want to grow in influence, if you want to lead, if you want to be remembered, make it less about being noticed and more about noticing others. Make people feel seen, make them feel safe, make them feel like they belong in your presence. Because in the end, they may not remember your name, they may forget your accomplishments, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And that, more than any title, talent, or trophy, is what makes someone truly unforgettable. Let me now show you what real leadership looks like. Not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that quietly earns respect. It doesn't need a stage, it doesn't require followers, it doesn't announce itself. It simply leads by example. The greatest leaders you've ever known, the ones who made a mark on your life, weren't always the ones with titles or power. They were the ones who showed up when it mattered, who stayed kind when no one was watching, who modeled integrity even when it cost them something. They didn't lead because they wanted recognition. They led because they couldn't not lead. Because when your values are that deeply rooted, when your vision is that clear, when your love for people outweighs your love for praise, you lead by how you live, not by what you say. Think of someone you admire deeply, maybe a teacher, a mentor, a parent, not because they were perfect, but because they were consistent. They didn't need to shout to be heard. They didn't need to convince you to believe. You watched how they handled stress, how they treated others when no one else was looking, how they kept their word even when it was inconvenient. And that quiet example, it planted something in you. You became better, not because they told you to, but because they showed you how. That's leadership. It's not flashy. It's not hungry for applause. It's like the sun, steady, quiet, life-giving. It rises every day without demanding thanks. And yet everything grows beneath its warmth. That's the kind of leader you are called to be. A quiet force of good. A presence people can count on. A light that doesn't blind, but guides. This world is filled with noise. People telling others what to do. Shouting, correcting, performing. But when you walk into a room with calm confidence, when your energy says, I don't need to control you, I'm just here to serve something bigger than both of us. People feel that. They trust it. They lean in. They remember you not because you dominated, but because you elevated. And this is what Dale Carnegie meant when he said, give others a fine reputation to live up to. Because when you believe in someone's potential, even before they believe in it themselves, you become the mirror they need. And when your actions align with your words, when your values remain unchanged, even under pressure, you become the compass others follow. Not because you forced them, but because you inspired them. They follow truth. They follow the energy of those who uplift. They follow the ones who make them feel capable, not judged. When you encourage someone, you awaken a hidden part of them. You say with your presence, I see more in you than you see in yourself. And that belief, it can change someone's life. That's not small. That's sacred. So lead with your life. Let your actions echo louder than your announcements. Let your presence make others feel safer, stronger, more seen, a warmth others can trust, a quiet strength that keeps rising every day, like this. Let me now bring everything home, not to a place of noise, but to the quiet space within you, the space you've always carried, the one that doesn't scream to be heard, but knows it's always been enough. Because the truth is, confidence isn't something you perform. It's something you remember. It's not the fire you force. It's the light that's been waiting, patient inside you. You don't have to become someone else to be respected. You don't need louder words, a sharper look, a tougher mask. You simply need to uncover what's already true, that you are already enough. Not because of what you've achieved, but because of how you choose to show up. When no one's cheering, when everything feels uncertain, when the spotlight is gone, that's where real confidence lives. In the quiet courage to speak gently in a loud world. In the grace to listen when others interrupt. In the strength to walk away when ego wants to win. In the humility to say, I don't know, but I'm willing to learn. In the stillness that says, I don't need you to approve of me, because I already walk with something deeper than approval. I walk with purpose. This is the kind of confidence no one can give you. And more importantly, no one can take from you. It's not built in front of crowds. It's forged in quiet decision. Every time you stay true to your values, when it would be easier to bend, every time you choose kindness when cruelty tempts you, every time you speak with honesty when silence would feel safer. You build it, brick by brick, moment by moment, until one day, without needing to shout it, you walk into a room, you sit across from someone, you face the mirror, and you feel it, that calm, that grounding, that warmth that rises from within and says quietly, but clearly, I know who I am. I know what I stand for, and that is enough. You become magnetic, not by trying to be seen, but by seeing. So stop chasing validation like a thirsty traveler chasing a mirage. Turn inward, plant your roots deep in who you are, not who others expect you to be. Because confidence isn't the roar of a lion. It's the stillness of the mountain that holds the storm without flinch. It's the unshakable trust in yourself that says, I'll keep showing up. I'll keep listening. I'll keep loving. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. It moves differently. It speaks less, but says more. It doesn't demand respect. It earns it by example. And the more you live from that place, the more your presence will do what no words ever could. It will whisper to the world, I am here, not to impress you, but to serve something higher than myself. And that is when you begin to influence without controlling, lead without forcing, and win without shouting. Because your quiet confidence, it doesn't ask for attention. It commands it simply by being real. So step into that power now. Stop seeking approval. Let your confidence speak without ever raising its voice.